Hello everyone, this video is going to be about how to get fast or how to get good at the multiple blindfolded event, also known as multi-blind. Now obviously before getting anything out of this video, you should know how to solve a cube blindfolded already. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Sakowski and I held the North American record for multi-blind very briefly. I am not, nor was I ever, the best at multi-blind, but I know what it's like to progress from only solving one cube blindfolded to, well, a lot more, and I think I can be of help. So, first I'm going to talk about what exactly multi-blind is. Multi-blind is like 3x3 blindfolded, except instead of solving one cube blindfolded, you're going to solve multiple cubes blindfolded, as the name suggests. So you would pick a number of cubes greater than 1, let's say 5, like we have right here. So you memorize all 5 of these cubes, and then you put a blindfold on, and while the blindfold's on, attempt to solve them all, and then stop the timer and you're done. Apart from all that, there is a time limit of 10 minutes per cube, capped at an hour. So, for example, if you wanted to try 5 cubes, you would have 50 minutes for your attempt. For 6 or more cubes, you would be given an hour, so you can't sit there all day, and you need to make your decision of how many cubes to attempt based on your capabilities. Multi-blind is scored using the following formula: number of cubes solved minus number of cubes unsolved. So for example, if you solved If you solved 4 out of 5 cubes, you would have 4 cubes solved and 1 cube unsolved. So 4 minus 1 equals 3. So you'd be awarded 3 points. Any score below 0 will count as a DNF. So it pays to be able to attempt a lot of cubes, but it also pays to be accurate. So now that all that's out of the way, let's talk methods. Progressing through the execution methods is actually just like normal 3x3 blindfolded, so whatever execution method you use for 3 blind, you're obviously going to use for multi-blind. For more information on 3 blind methods, you should take a look at Noah's How to Get Fast at 3 Blind video, which will be in the description. But for memorization, there are things to keep in mind that are unique to this event. If you looked at Noah's video, he mentions that letter pairs and letter pair images are basically the way to go for memorization in 3 blind. You should look into that as well if you don't already use it. Now, letter pairs are also really good for multi-blind, but they're used a little bit differently. What you really want to go for is images for everything. Images. You want to be able to picture the memorization in your head vividly. So based on the letters that you memorize and the images that correspond to them, you might imagine, say, I don't know, a chocolate bar in a sword fight with a bear while your friend is watching. You know, something really strange that's going to stick in your head. I will say right now, don't use visual memo and don't use audio memo. There is an exception to the audio memo thing, but I'll go over that later. This mainly goes for visual memo, because I remember struggling to attempt low numbers of cubes because I memorized corners visually. And in my opinion, it's really important that you use letter pair images for both edges and corners, because both edges and corners really need to be stuck in your head. Also, I should mention before I forget that when you're memorizing the cubes, you want to memorize each cube in the order that you will solve it. And by that I mean, if you solve edges first and corners last, you'll want to, for the most part, memorize the edges and then memorize the corners, as opposed to the other way around. This takes a little bit of getting used to, but not as much as you might think. So just to clarify, by that I mean, when you memorize if you solve edges first and corners last, you're going to memorize the edges and then memorize the corners and then go on to the next cube. Now, you might be wondering, even with these letter pair images, it's still going to be a lot to memorize, especially if you're attempting upwards of 20, 30, even 40 cubes in an hour if you're Moscow. Fortunately, there is a really good way of being able to store a lot of information relatively quickly, and I highly recommend that you use this in multi-blind. It is called Roman rooms, or the journey method. Here's how it works. You want to pick a building or area of some kind that you're really familiar with. The easiest choice would be your house. that's what I use, my house. And you're going to imagine walking through your house, and for every room you pass through, you're going to associate the memorization of a cube with that room. So let's just get the unsolved cubes out here. Another example. So, for example, my first room in my house that I imagine is the foyer. So for the first cube, I would imagine whatever the memo is, let's say a chocolate bar and a sword fight with a bear while my friend is watching, whatever the memo is, and I would imagine everything occurring in that room. And then I would imagine walking into my second room, the living room in my case, and the memo for the second cube would be associated with the second room, and so on and so forth. When you start using this, you're going to see improvement really, really quickly, and you're going to be shocked how well this works. I know I was. You just need to establish the rooms you're going to use and really visualize your memo, and you'll be surprised what you can do with a little practice. So now that you know the means by which you're going to do this, I'd like to touch on the exact order of everything. Everyone has different ways of reviewing their memo, and how exactly they memorize, not necessarily their method of memorization, because most people use letter pair images, but with respect to things like reviewing, I'm going to show you how I review, just as an example. Don't think this is the way to do it, but this is just to provide an example. So, excuse me. Let's say I'm attempting 13 cubes, so I'm going to get 13 cubes out. Hopefully I don't drop them. And I'm going to move the camera up so you can see better, but okay. First of all, I group them into fours, and I leave this one on the side, and I'll explain why that is later. Personally, what I do is, if I have 13 cubes, I'll memorize the first cube, and then memorize the second cube, and then I'm going to review these two, and then I'm going to memorize the third cube, memorize the fourth cube, and then review these two, and then I'm going to review all these four. Then I memorize the fifth cube, memorize the sixth cube, review these two. Memorize the seventh cube, memorize the eighth cube, review these two, and then review these four. Memorize this ninth cube, memorize the 10th cube, review these two. Memorize the 11th cube, memorize the 12th cube, review these two, and then review these four. And then I'm going to review all 12 of these. And then, while I have the memo for those 12 cubes stuck in my head, because I reviewed them so many times, I solve this final cube just as I would with a regular 3-blind solve. So for this one, I would use audio for corners, because when I put the blindfold on, I would solve this immediately. And since I solve corners first, I would memorize corners last, since I'm solving this really quickly and at the beginning of execution. Now, to remind you, the rest of the cube should be memorized in the order that they will be solved. So, yeah, that's that. So, that's how I do it. Common themes you might find in people's reviewing might be grouping the cubes as I group the cubes into fours, just like as you can see. Reviewing two at a time like I do. A lot of multi-blind solvers do that, I've seen. And almost everyone solves their final cube as a normal 3-blind solve. But really the best advice I can give you is to try different things out. Different people are going to need different amounts of review, and once your attempts become easier and easier, you can try and review less and condition yourself to need less review. So I'm going to conclude this video by giving a few miscellaneous tips or stressing points. First of all, just because you can do, say, 10 cubes in an hour doesn't mean that you always have to attempt at least 10 cubes when you practice. Attempting smaller numbers of cubes is definitely still good practice, and it might even be more beneficial, especially when you're working on accuracy or getting a better feel for what you can handle when it comes to reviewing, or things like that. Another tip, and I can't stress this enough, you have to really visualize your memo. When you practice attempts, yeah, you have to really visualize your memo, because when you do, you can recall it like that, and especially in conjunction with Roman rooms, it will come to you very easily when you do this. So when you practice attempts, make a conscious effort to give your entire memo a clear image that will just stick in your head. Another tip, the better you are at 3-blind, the better you will be at multi-blind in general. So they really go hand in hand. So practicing three blind will definitely help. It is advised that if you are really serious about multi-blind, you should also be really serious about three blind, as in learn three style and things like that. This is all going to help your multi-blind. So that's actually really all I have to say. Hopefully you will see some improvement with these tips, and I hope this video helped. Bye.